Okay, good.
Yeah.
I do have another one. I'll leave that with you. This is my rechargeables out of my CV, so in case something happens, you got to know.
It's already captioned, like right now.
Yeah.
Look at this. I'm on the crowd.
Hey! I'm staying out of that.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, folks, if you haven't signed the petition, you'll be able to do that here tomorrow from 2:30 until 5 o'clock as well, and on the 14th from 7:30 until 9:30 in the evening. Okay, thank you.
We're live. We're live. Good. So this is the picture of the crowd. It's live stream right now. So after this, I need to just change the lanes to the. Well, it's live stream right now. It's
that's great. That's good.
So it's live.
That's what you were talking about. You have to just no, I'm going to be signing the petition 30 to 5 tomorrow.
Yeah. For your bill.
Yeah.
Is that under your name?
Yes.
Your address and your name? Like
You have to have an actual number.
Yeah.
With my license to verify my license.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, do I have to wait till the 26th, or can I bring that tomorrow after?
Tomorrow.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm on the same boat.
How's the sound over there? How's the sound over there? How's the sound over there? Can you guys in the audience hear? Okay, I think people can hear. That's going to be fantastic. Let's take a look at the levels here a little bit. That is fantastic. That is awesome. Thanks for tuning in, guys. It was really a pleasure. 130 people online, and it's kept going up and up and up and up and up and up and up.
Oh, you're right on my working space. I do the live stream for today's event. Yeah, that's my little camera right there.
Hey, John, we have 300 people watching online already. The show hasn't even started. 300. 300 people watching online. Keep your hands in the air.
There's that many people in line outside right now. Yeah, it's unbelievable, really. So I'd like to say thanks to Kate from I Am Albertan over on the side over here. I got this really cool hat. They got hats, they got shirts, they got license plates. All the money's going to pay for this event tonight. So she's donating that to this. So go over and help out Kate over there. We appreciate it. Also, again, go up and scan the QR code to get those independence facts at your fingertips. Download it to your phone. Use 20 different points on there. You can do that. And again, I want to mention, because there's so many people lining up to sign the petition as well, 2:30 to 5 tomorrow, and on the 14th from 7:30 to 9:30 here if you want to sign the petition.
Who's watching from Edmonton here? Who's watching from Edmonton? Who is watching from Edmonton? Raise your hands on the live stream if you guys are from Edmonton right here, because I drove all the way from Edmonton just to do this live stream for you guys, which is awesome. Hey. So everything is being set up right now. Everybody is fired up. Camrose, we've got people from Camrose. Yes, exactly. So I have more people watching. So essentially the 300 is just all the platforms combined. Oh my goodness. Is it so cool? Watching from freaking Mexico, Cochrane, Saskatchewan, Airdrie. Hey guys, that's awesome. We got confirmation that we have people watching from Mexico today. We got people from Airdrie, Edmonton, Fort Sask, Cold Lake, Red Deer, Fort McLeod. Do you notice that people in South Africa are actually watching the live stream right now? Because they have their own independent stuff there too. Huh? I guess so. We got people from Tisdale, Saskatchewan, the live stream there. And some expat in the Philippines because of the winter, right? Watching from Grand Prairie, Red Deer. Awesome.
Checking.
Hello, hello.
I could pull this, right? It's not taped on. Okay, I just think I'll probably stand. Yeah, Max, how do I lower this? That's good. Is that aim it at me properly so I don't mess it up? Because I'm not doing the feedback. It's all good. Okay, like, yeah.
So just keep in mind, it's a little button there.
Okay, so once we get to the Q&A, I'll get out and I can stand up. We don't have the mic, so I can move without.
Wow, 400 in here.
Yeah. My math makes that 800. What's that? My math makes that 1,000.
Well, it's like I said, that wasn't your major.
I always like my mom. But no math.
We have 500 people watching online. And it is coming growing. We got people from Edmonton, lots of Edmonton, from Churchill, Rimbey, Grand Prairie, and Calgary who just joined in.
That's a good idea. Let the whistle. All right, ready to go? I'm ready to rock and roll.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I guess I should say hello, Alberta. Great to have you here. I do have some notes. I'll sit down in just a second. My name is John Bolton. It's a pleasure to have you here tonight. I was talking to some people just a few minutes ago. They came up to say hi. And I said, you know, I've been working in radio for a very long time. I've done a lot of speeches. I was talking to Dennis and Eva over here and Cory, and I was saying, the number one fear for people is to speak in front of a crowd. Number two is death, right? But I knew that coming here tonight, I would have a lot of friends. So that makes me feel really good. So you're all my friends. It's wonderful to have you here this evening. I was just talking to Cory. Can you hear me okay? Is it clear enough for you? Good. Just talking to Cory. We'd like to thank Max from Freedom Calendar.
Yay, Max!
Max came here from Edmonton. We are streaming right now. Hi to all the people who are watching on the live stream as well. We thank you so much. And don't forget that you will be able to sign the petition. And I know it can be a little frustrating because they're slowly getting the badges out to people, but they'll be everywhere soon. We're going to get our 177,000 times 5, folks. This is amazing. I watched Cory today on his YouTube channel. I'm a YouTuber, by the way, for those of you who don't know me, but I watched Cory today. Cory's saying that it's about, the numbers are saying 31% right now want independence, and we have to work hard to get the other 20 or more. Nice to get 60. I tend to think, seeing a crowd like this, it's a lot higher. I really feel that way. So I'm really excited about what's going on, and there's as many people outside right now trying to get in here as inside.
John, you gotta move this way.
Oh, okay, I'll move over. I'll sit down here, make it easier. So again, thank you for coming here tonight. So I just want to tell you a little bit about me. When we were sitting down a few weeks ago, they were saying, John, you're not from Alberta originally. Talk about the people who live in Ontario and what they think about what's going on out here, out west. Because before I moved here, I knew nothing about the West, and now I consider myself an Albertan. Albertan first, right? I'll tell you how little I knew about Alberta when I moved out here. I had to move our whole house. My wife was already here. The last thing I packed was a dehumidifier. Yeah. And I got out here and realized I didn't need it when all my feet were cracking and I had bloody fingers because it was so dry out here. I was taking a bucket of water out of my house in Ontario. I bought a humidifier. I was putting a bucket of water in my house when I got here. So that's how little I knew about it. But I'm from, I figure I should have moved here because I'm from a place called Petrolia, Ontario. Yeah, you're laughing. Sounds like petroleum, but it's one of the first places in North America where oil was found. Just down the road is Oil Springs. They found oil there about 1850 or so. They still got a thing there. They still pump oil. But I grew up in Sarnia, and as many of you know, a lot of our oil from Alberta goes to Sarnia. So it only makes sense that I live here now because this is oil country, folks. I would never go back to Ontario now. I love this place so much. But I got up this morning and I was thinking about doing a video on my channel. I didn't have any real idea about what I was going to talk about here tonight, and I didn't know what I was going to talk about in my video, but I did a video today called Carney, Canada, and the Country of No. I was looking at articles. Danielle Smith, there was an article about her yesterday demanding a pipeline for Alberta. She tweeted out on X, "We demand a pipeline," wrote a letter to Mark Carney about that saying we want a pipeline. You might remember earlier this week, Pierre Poilievre wrote an article for the National Post saying, "Stop standing in the way of a pipeline, build a pipeline." And also Doug Ford from Ontario, the premier there, said, "We need to build a pipeline. We need to build a pipeline with Canadian workers, Canadian pipes, Canadian steel, and we need it now." I even watched Dan Matteig from Canadians for Affordable Energy saying the same thing. And Dan used to be a Liberal. He wouldn't be welcome in the Liberal Party, I think, today. Meanwhile, we're all talking about building a pipeline and needing a pipeline, and where's Mark Carney going? He's going to China, and he's not building a pipeline. We've got trillions of dollars of oil beneath our feet. If you watch my channel, last summer I was sitting on my back deck with my cats, nice sunny day, and I remember saying how disgusted I was that below my feet was a river of money, and our country won't get it out of the ground. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Where we're sitting right now, we're sitting over a lot of oil, trillions of dollars of oil. People ask me why I want independence. And I ask other people, and I was at the legislature on the 25th asking them why they want independence, and went up to a man sitting with his 2 children, maybe 16 or 17. He wanted independence because he didn't want the Liberals to take guns away from him, and I think that's a damn good reason. But yeah. But I went up to his daughter and I said to his daughter, "Why do you want independence?" And she answered probably what most of you would answer right off the bat. It would be in your top 3. She said, "Money." Right? Money. Good reason. I think we would like some money as well. Now, Danielle Smith said, and was actually making a good case for the independence movement at one of her Alberta Next meetings, her voice raises up and said, we send $20 to $25 billion out east all the time. They take our money, they funnel it to the east, to liberal-friendly ridings where they vote liberal. That's $5,000 for every man, woman, and child in Ontario, or here in Alberta. Every one of us. Imagine if we all had that money in our pocket right now. We could have one hell of a party here tonight, couldn't we? But that's the case. It's a lot of money. But people ask me why I want independence. You know, I'm here telling you what people in Ontario think as opposed to what we do in Alberta. And let's go back to Mark Carney refusing to say yes about a pipeline here. Now, you might say that Danielle Smith has got a memorandum of understanding with Carney. We'll get a pipeline because of that, but you have to understand that Carney's saying no, but if you go to the west of us, and David Eby's saying no as well, right? And I tell people why I want independence first is because I'm tired of people saying no to Alberta. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of Alberta begging for yes. I think it's below Danielle Smith to beg Mark Carney and the Liberal Party for a pipeline. I think it's below her. I just think it's wrong, and that's why I want an independent Alberta. People out east don't understand that. There's a difference between Alberta and where I was born. We see the possibilities. We see the benefits. We see the prosperity. It comes from saying yes, and people here say yes to things. We want to get things done, and we're constantly told no, and I've had enough of it. And the only way we're going to get a yes is by voting yes when we get our referendum. So that's how I feel about this. I want to turn a no into yes, and the only way to get a yes is by voting yes to the following question. Do you agree that the province of Alberta should cease to be a part of Canada to become an independent state? How are you guys going to vote? Right. So there's lots of good reasons for us to leave. And I think the main reason people give for us to stay is patriotism. And I don't think that's a good enough answer anymore, folks. I've got 20 or 30 things I can use for the reasons we should leave. So that's my spiel for tonight. Thank you very much. And what we're going to do this evening, thank you. What we're going to do this evening, we're going to have some speeches. We're going to touch on some of the topics that get discussed all the time. They're myths that are said about the independence movement, and they won't die. So we're going to be touching on these things. Guests at the table here tonight, we've got Dennis Kalma at the end. For those of you who don't know, Dennis wrote this. Does anybody else have this? This is The Value of Freedom. This is a costed out plan for Alberta independence. Dennis wrote this along with Jeff Rath, so thanks, Dennis, for that. He wrote this. You can get a copy of this and read all about it. Also, we've got Eva Chipiuk here. Eva is a lawyer, and she's going to be talking about what happens after independence. And of course, we've got Cory Morgan here. You know Cory from the Western Standard and the Cory Morgan Show. I could say Cory wrote the book on independence because he did. Here it is right here. The Sovereigntist Handbook, available at all good Amazons, wherever you may find one. So we'll be hearing from all of them tonight. And we'll start at the end of the table with Dennis. And what are we talking about tonight, Dennis?
There's a whole lot we can talk about the fiscal plan for Alberta, but a number of questions come up quite frequently. The top two that come up over and over again are, what about my pension, what about Canada Pension, and what about the state of being landlocked, and what do we do, how do we make money if we're landlocked? So I want to discuss those two in detail, but all the rest of them, including some of the assumptions in the document, the other areas, immigration policy, you name it, I can discuss or answer questions as they're fielded from you guys. So those are two things I'm going to cover in a bit more detail. So first of all, the pension plan. First of all, you got to remember that CPP is actually a fully funded pension plan. It's not a pay-as-you-go plan. So we put money in every year Every Canadian who works does that. And that money goes in and gets saved and used as an investment to pay pensions. Alberta grossly over-contributes. When you look at the roughly $700 billion in the Canada Pension Plan, roughly $350 to $400 billion of that came from Alberta. So if we leave Canada, and there's a formula in the CPP Act, we in theory can get that money back, $360 to $400 billion. Now, when we were writing the document, we thought carefully, will we get all that back? Will Canada release that much cash? What are other factors that may deduct from that? And we looked at things like, what about our share of the national debt? What about buying facilities from the federal government that we might want to keep? Sometimes I don't think we want to keep any of them, but a few might be nice. And so we sort of took a very, very conservative approach and said, let's pretend we get half of the money we're owed. And we take that half money and we say, all right, we're going to get CPP rate of returns. We're going to continue to contribute if you're working. That's the pension, the CPP contribution you make now. But it'll be for an APP, an Alberta Pension Plan. And what happens then? Well, it turns out between contributions and the return on that investment, you make about $23 billion per year. Our pension obligations are around $5 billion. So you can see we have lots of money left over. So that means we can do things like reduce the contribution rates. We can increase benefits. A favorite of mine is getting rid of taxation on pension plans. And for those of you who saved and did your RRSP planning through your life, we want to get rid of the clawbacks. So what that means, when we transfer that money into Alberta's hands, we can, without a doubt, increase your benefits, reduce your contributions, maintain all the other things like OAS, guaranteed income supplement, and so forth, and turn out that our pensioners will be in much better shape under an Alberta regime than they are under the current CPP regime. And I haven't... Sure.
If Marion Clausen is still in the building here, you have some paperwork. Could you take it over to Al right now? Marion Clausen, thank you. Dennis, go ahead.
No worries. So the thing we didn't cover in the document, but is inherent in it, we can also benefit pensioners just by the fact we're going to reduce taxation. When you go through the value of freedom, you realize that it's within our ability on day one to reduce our taxes anywhere between roughly 30 and 50%. So imagine if the taxes you paid now were reduced by that amount as a pensioner or as a worker. So that's the benefit we get by being in Alberta. So I'm happy to answer more questions about that, but hopefully you feel confident that, first of all, the plan will be stable in Alberta's hands, it would pay the kind of pensions that we all deserve, and it would be free of taxation in a way that puts more money in your pocket. Second thing I want to talk about is something that comes up quite frequently, and that is, yeah, but we're landlocked. How are we going to get products to market? We can't sell anything. Canada can block us out. Well, there's two answers to that question. First is the legal one, and that is there's about 34 landlocked countries in the world, places like Austria, take an example, and they're governed under what's called the UN Law of the Sea. And that requires nations surrounding landlocked nations, like we would be, to permit access, tariff-free access to port facilities, no real barriers to bring their products to the sea, to deep water. So I would argue under the UN Law of the Sea, it's actually going to be easier to run pipelines through BC than it is through the Canadian system. And Canada is a signatory to that UN Law of the Sea. I like to think they're going to follow the law, and let's presume they do. But What happens if they don't? What happens if they say, well, we're going to turn off the pipes, we're not going to let you ship anything? What happens then? Well, I take note of the fact that the CN rail line, the CP rail line, and the Trans-Canada Highway run through Alberta. And I'm sure the creative people amongst us can figure out all sorts of rules that would delay, impair, or tariff any Canadian transport from BC out east or from the east out to BC. So Canada's not going to play that game. Canada is not going to do anything dumb like that. If anything, they're going to want to have a no tariff barrier with us, basic and open access, much like we have with the Americans now. I would also add one more factor, and that is that you've heard probably Jeff Rath and others have gone to the United States to speak with the American government administration. I agree. One of the key things the Americans have said they have intentions to do is to offer us a free trade zone between themselves and the country of Alberta, which means essentially no tariffs going to the United States and no tariff for American goods coming back. And you think about it, over 70% of our trade already goes north-south. The United States makes pretty well everything we might need. If Canada gets stupid, we'll just buy it from the Americans. So those are the 2 points I wanted to cover, and I'm going to turn it over, I think, to Cory's next, but I'll turn it back to John for a handover. But I'm certainly prepared to answer any question on any topic in the question and answer session that we're going to hold after these speeches.
Okay, and again, if you're a little bit mic shy, there are cards at the back you can fill out to write down a question, and I will certainly ask your question if we have time tonight. And Cory, you're next, and you're going to be talking about...
Yeah, you give... This thing working?
No.
How about there? Oh, there you go. Let's try again. Okay.
I think that worked.
Yeah, you gave me an easy one. Treaties. Which is fine. I'm going to stand up and look at all these fantastic Albertans in here tonight. Wow, this is something else. So I can see a handful of people in here old enough to remember the 1995 referendum in Quebec. And remember the tone of Canada at that time. Please don't go. Please don't leave us. Something's changed. Alberta's looking to go, and they're saying you're not allowed. You're not even allowed to vote on it. You're not allowed to discuss it. You're not allowed to talk about it. And we're going to put court challenges in. How can you do that? Why can you do that? Because of the treaties. Well, those treaties were there when Quebec was trying to go too. But something apparently has changed. Yeah, it's Alberta. I mean, come on. We want a police force. We want a pension plan. The other provinces has them. Ontario has that. Quebec has that. When they do it, they're asserting their provincial rights. When we do it, we're assholes. That's just the nature of Canada, but that's fine. Carry on with it. But seriously, getting to the treaty thing. Treaties were mythical things for most of us. We'd read about it in school. We'd grow up and we'd hear about treaty violations and we'd hear about problems with treaties. But of course, nobody had read them. And it was difficult. Where would you find one? You'd go to a library perhaps and find a book with a treaty in it or archives somewhere. But now we've got that beautiful thing called the internet. And I don't know how many years ago it was the first time I went out and actually read a treaty. And these are very simple documents. They aren't that complicated. They're important. And they have to be abided by. I fully agree with that. But people have interpreted what these treaties mean and encompass into something that's absolutely untrue, and it's a myth we've got to cut through. They are very clear, and the biggest and most important part of these treaties, and that's where there were some violations, there really were defining where the reserve lands are. And, it'd say from this river down to here, and from that boundary there, and this is where the reserve is going to be. But it's also, and this is the part they don't like talking about, says cede, surrender, permanently, forever, every other part of the province. That's what people forget. The misinformation we're seeing right now, you might have seen a meme if you're internet types. They show a map of Alberta, and they show all the zones of treaties that we're under. And Alberta's under 4 treaties. There's 6, 7, and 8, which are big ones, and just a little tiny chunk of 10 comes in from Saskatchewan. But they interpret it and they put this little thing on all those shaded areas and said, not your land, not your land, not your land. It's actually quite the opposite. What they're trying to claim is that this is treaty land, thus it's ineligible for independence. But no, that's the ceded land. Permanently, 100%, forever, ceded land. 1.3% of the province is reserve land. Maybe it'll be a little higher because, as I said, there was some bad dealing, fair enough. There still are some things to be settled. But for people to say the treaties stop us from becoming independent, read one. There's nothing in there that says anything of the sort. And people say constitutionally, the First Nations rights are in the Constitution. That prevents it. Have a look in there, because that's again where people are being disingenuous and playing with the words. The Constitution says consult. And it's important. I think it's pretty rude to our fellow citizens to do anything major without consulting them. But people are reading in consent. Both start with C, but there's a very big difference between the two. We don't need consent. Do not. Not for independence, not for pipelines, not for many things. And this has been covered repeatedly by the Supreme Court, not so much on the independence front, but on pipelines and other projects throughout BC. Again, that's the great thing of the internet. You look it up, you could find those rulings. You don't need a law library anymore. And you could see there's been many court challenges on whether or not consent was required. It was not required. A lot of what gets held up is the consultation process. Fair enough. They've been saying consultation was inadequate. Maybe it wasn't thorough enough. Maybe it didn't cover enough things. I think there's a lot of BS going on with that too, because they realized they could take that process and drag things out indefinitely as long as you can say I wasn't consulted enough because nobody came into my house and gave me a hamburger and asked me directly if I say yes or no. You can only do so much. But I can't think of a better way to consult than to hold a referendum where each and every citizen of the whole province gets to vote yes or no, Indigenous or not. And we must respect our Indigenous Albertans. They're Albertans. They have every bit of the rights we have and should. And we should approach it with respect. There's part of it too where people speak, advocates, again, potentially opponents of us academics, and they talk, Chief Sunshine up in the Sturgeon Lake Reserve and some of the others, as if they represent every Indigenous person in the province. They don't all vote the same, guys. They don't all feel the same. They're people like everyone else. They're all different. Let's quit letting these chiefs pretend they speak for all of them, because we know they bloody well don't. And they should be at the table, and they should be consulted. But in the end, if the chiefs say no, I don't care, to be blunt. There's things that Keith Wilson's been very clear on. That treaty land, the stuff that was set aside for the Indigenous people is under contract. That is theirs. We have to respect that. And on a post-independence scenario, with what we're looking at, again, Keith Wilson discussed it quite well if people follow him online. There's a few options. And those treaty obligations, they could choose to transfer themselves over through the government of Alberta. They can remain with the federal government, which would become awkward. It's kind of a form of partition. But these are things that we'd have to be looking at that time. And we've got to realize, too, another misinterpretation of what crown means. Crown land. I mean, yes, we came from being a British colony. It's a term that we still use, but it's very outdated. Crown basically should substitute the word government or state, whatever way you want to put it. When it's been ceded down, King Charles has no real authority in Canada anymore. So crown land, when you look at a map and you see a whole pile of it all throughout, particularly in the West, is public land. It's government land. It's people's land. And in 1930, that was actually transferred from the feds to the provinces. It's our land. Because there's other people I've seen putting out that inane argument saying it's Crown land, you could leave, but all that Crown land stays with the Crown. No, what? Is Charles going to put on his breastplate and march out and grab it? I'd like to see it, but I don't think it's going to happen. Or William, even if we like him a little more. But there's a lot of things that we're going to have to do, and this has been brilliant tonight. This is the way we still cut through the BS. This is the way we are Albertans. We come out in person. We talk in person. We scrap with each other at times. Boy, independent sorts like to do it, don't we? That's our nature. But you can't beat being face-to-face, and that's when we go out as advocates to get those signatures for the referendum, and then when we go out to try and get the yes votes for the referendum, we're all campaigners. And people are going to be asking us about those things at the door, because they've heard the other things. They aren't necessarily political weenies like me and presumably a few of you, and they won't necessarily know these things. So that's where we can arm ourselves with the answers and point them to these things. Well, no, that's not a proper interpretation of what a treaty is. Well, no, that's not what the Crown is. And no, we don't need Canada's consent, nor the express consent of Indigenous people. We want to get it, vote, by all means. But we aren't bound by that. We got to stop letting people pretend that we aren't even allowed to hold the question, how much more undemocratic can we get than that? If you're that confident in the Federation, then let us vote. Beat us in a campaign, Fabio. Sorry, Thomas. But we have opponents lining up. They're organizing. And don't underestimate them. This is going to be, we're making history. It's the event of a lifetime. Never in our lives have we seen a referendum like this in Alberta. We're breaking new ground, and we're making history. And it's really beginning tonight. This is the first big Calgary meeting since the petition got approved, and it's going to be a hell of a year. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Cory. Maybe I can just add something as you talked about the referendum, and this could be a once-in-a-lifetime thing for us. If you look back at the referendum in Quebec, that was 30 years ago. And I'll have to be 91 if we wait for another referendum here. So Mitch Sylvester said to me just a while ago, and he said at the Alberta Legislature on October 25th, everybody, go out there and volunteer a bit of your time. Once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Let's not let this slip away. Eva, you're up next. And I think you've got a question to answer. What happens after a vote of yes on the referendum? Is that correct?
That's right, and I'll get there. So right now there's a lot of excitement on the prospect of an independence referendum in Alberta. Okay. It's like right in my face. Let's start again. Right now, there's a lot of excitement on the prospect of independence in Alberta, on the independence referendum, and rightfully so. It's truly inspiring to see millions of Albertans paying attention, asking serious questions, and preparing to directly exercise their democratic voices in the most powerful way possible. Citizen engagement at this scale is not something to fear. It's something to respect and protect. And make no mistake, those who think that they are in control are paying very close attention because they know exactly where the power truly lies, here. And I'm here. And I'm here because I want to inspire confidence in the process and to address directly and without apology those who are deliberately sowing fear of what may come next while disparaging fellow citizens for simply engaging democracy. A healthy democracy does not mock and disparage civic engagement. It depends on it, and it thrives because of it. I remember back in the 1990s, when I was just a young girl, hearing adults talk about the Quebec referendum. I did not really understand what it meant. In my mind, I imagined if Quebec voted yes, it would somehow float away and become its own little island. What strikes me today is not that a child once misunderstood a constitutional question, but that decades later, some adults still do. Because even now, there are people who speak as though Alberta voting on its future would result in chaos and disorder overnight. That is simply not the case. While we're speaking of Quebec, let us take note that Quebec has had independence parties operating openly and lawfully for decades, both provincially and federally. Democracy was not threatened. This is not radical, and this is how free societies work. So let us set aside the noise, the speculation, and the deliberate nonsense and focus on one simple question. What does the day after a successful referendum actually look like? In the morning when we, the citizens of the beautiful, rugged, and resilient province of Alberta, wake up to the news that the Albertans have exercised the right to self-determination and voted to become a truly free and independent nation, life continues much as it did the day before. Let that settle the alarmists and the fearmongers. Legally speaking, the Constitution will not disappear. The laws of Canada will remain in force. All the courts will work just as they always have. Contracts will still be binding, schools and hospitals will remain open, businesses will continue to power the life of the province just as they always have. Life will continue as it did the day before. What does change is something far more powerful and unprecedented in Alberta history. The great people of Alberta will have spoken clearly and legally, and that injects something into the system that cannot be ignored: honesty. And don't we need a good dose of that? A clear democratic mandate strips away pretense, delay, and political games. It forces our public institutions and office holders to confront what Albertans want, rather than what is most convenient for those in power. The referendum is not a tantrum, it's not a rebellion or a negotiation tactic, and it certainly is not treason or treachery. A referendum is one of the simplest and most direct expressions of the democratic will of the people. Even the Supreme Court of Canada has been clear on this point. A clear referendum result constitutes a democratic expression of the will of the people. And I encourage everyone in this room to read that decision, read the Quebec secession case. It's not symbolic, it's not performative, and it cannot be ignored. When people speak clearly, the obligations of those in power changes. Elected officials, federally, provincially, and yes, including Indigenous leadership, are no longer free to dismiss, delay, or deflect. They are required to constitutionally listen, and more than that, they are required to act. The Supreme Court held that a clear expression of democratic will creates a duty on those tasked to govern to negotiate in good faith at a constitutional convention, to seriously, respectfully, and peacefully discuss how Alberta's independence can be achieved. Not because it's convenient or comfortable, but because the people have spoken. This is not chaos or disorder. This is democracy functioning exactly as designed. That is what the day after looks like. Albertans are law-abiding people. They will do this carefully, intelligently, legally. Institutions will remain intact, stability will be preserved. What will no longer be possible is ambiguity and dismissal. And let me be very clear about one thing: a referendum is the opposite of treason. Treason is the betrayal of the public trust, governing without consent, suppressing debate, and treating citizens as servants rather than participants. It happens when people are told to sit down, stay quiet, and accept decisions made far from them and without them. And people feel the need for change in their daily lives. That's exactly why we're here today. We feel it at the grocery store, in our communities, on our streets, in rising costs, declining services, and growing distrust. We feel it when dissent is punished and debate is treated as a problem rather than a signal that something is wrong. So when somebody asks why Albertans are demanding better government and a different structure, the answer is simple. Because we are worse off than we were a few short years ago, and pretending otherwise is no longer acceptable. This referendum will not magically solve every problem the next day, but it will force honesty into the conversation. It will impose accountability, and it will return responsibility to where it belongs, with the people. We cannot outsource democracy every 4 years and then complain from the sidelines. Freedom requires participation. Accountability requires engagement. Democracy requires courage. Respect from the political class and broader establishment is not optional. We do not earn it through blind obedience. Respect is foundational to any legitimate political system. There must be better government. There must be real accountability. There must be honesty and transparent decision-making. There must be respect for our autonomy. The day after the referendum will not be the end of the conversation. It will be the beginning of a more honest one. And that is what gives this moment meaning. That is what excites me. Enough with the games. We are tired of being told to sit down and shut up. We are done with that. Self-determination is not radical. Democratic participation is not dangerous. Asking a question is not treason. An informed, engaged citizenry is not a threat to democracy. It is proof that democracy is still alive. Alberta's future will not be built by those who tremble at the thought of self-government, but by those willing to meet it head-on with clarity, integrity, and resolve. This moment requires confidence, confidence in ourselves, confidence in our fellow Albertans, confidence in our democratic process. The people have a voice, the people have a will, and when that will is known, it must be respected. That's democracy, that is self-determination, and that is the future we're prepared to build together.
How do you follow that up? Wow.
You said I was last.
You know, I'm feeling my age here a little bit tonight. Cory said when Quebec was going to leave, everybody says, please don't leave. I was living in Eastern Ontario at the time. And I wouldn't do it today, don't hold it against me, but I was at the Unity rally in Montreal trying to keep Quebec in. I wouldn't do it today. But I wasn't a little kid wondering if Quebec was going to float away. I knew that wasn't going to happen, so I am feeling my age a little bit. That was a great speech, and thank you to Dennis. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thanks to Eva. Thanks to Cory. I admire these people so much, I really do. I've had Dennis on my channel, I've had Cory on, and here's a warning, Eva, you're going to have to come on my channel with me now. I'd love to talk to you. I really, really would. So we've kept the speeches relatively short tonight, and I think that's so that you could ask questions. I think this is a terrific evening. First off, it's wonderful to have so many people here, but I think it's a fun evening because we can ask a lot more questions tonight. So if you have a question, I'm going to come out into the crowd in just a moment with a microphone to do that. I'd like to just thank a couple of people tonight. I think we need to thank the volunteers who are doing this event tonight. These are people on the front lines of the independence movement. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank Heather Field and Jeevan Mangat for arranging this evening tonight. Thank you so much. We do appreciate you. And we appreciate the people here who are signing people up for the petition. If you can't do that tonight, I want to remind you, tomorrow, 2:30 to 5 here, and on the 14th, 7:30 until 9:30. And be patient. More and more people are getting those badges. Be sure to sign the petition and take somebody with you as well, okay? Make sure you do that. So what we're going to do now, maybe Jeevan, if you can bring any of the questions that may have been put on cards up to the front, I would appreciate that. And I can leave this microphone here, and maybe Max can give me the wireless. And if you have a question, if you could line up down the middle here and ask our panelists, they'd love to answer your questions. Okay, so just where from? Max, you got me? Okay. Where are you from? And isn't working? Come on over here. Where are you from and what's your name, please?
Hello? There you go. Okay, here you go. There you go. My name is Teresa, and I'm from Calgary. And I was at an event last night, and Dave Parody brought up a really good thing. And he said that with the laws, that once we get the referendum and we win it, that there is no law saying that the Alberta government has to follow through and free us. Is that true?
Well, that is what I was saying, is that really legally nothing changes. The Constitution and everything stays the same. We're a democracy, and our elected officials have to come together at a constitutional convention and negotiate an exit for Alberta. There's no other way it can happen.
But they don't have to. Like, it just winning this referendum does not guarantee that Danielle Smith is going to go stand up for us and make it happen, is it?
No, that's a gap that's in the legislation a bit. But a statement that Danielle Smith likes to use a lot, if you remember from Ralph Klein, he said the way politics work is you find the parade and you get in front of it. When 60% of Albertans vote and say they want to become independent, I promise you, Danielle Smith and a whole pile of politicians are going to get in front of that parade.
All right, that's what I'm hoping.
Thank you for the question. Thank you. Your name, where are you from?
My name is Mike from Calgary. I got a little confused after the Kazakh petition was signed and validated. I thought there was supposed to be a question, a clear yes or no question that resulted in his petition. I don't understand how we even have to do this now when he got all those signatures and we could have voted yes, yeah, a no, or a yes exactly on the same thing.
Sure, I can. So the Kazakh petition essentially was a question not formatted in the way that's suitable, that meets the requirements of the Clarity Act. So that's one issue. The second issue with it is that it's a legislative question. So essentially it's a direction for the legislature to contemplate. And what we wrote was a question aimed at the constitutional change. So our question is quite a bit different, and it's more powerful.
Okay, cool. I got another comment. It's fantastic to see everybody out here tonight. It's great to see all these other hosting events in Didsbury and Bicycle and all the such. We need more. We need more of these, more education to the population. We've got to educate the people that don't know anything. Everybody here tonight is go, go, go. And I think Cory said something about this yesterday, that we have to get the second third of the population that's going into this. We have to educate them more to be more favorable to us.
Well, I think I can speak safely for my fellow table members here, but I, for one, expect from now until the time the vote is held to be doing as many of these things as I physically can do. I'm answering questions online all the time at Dennis Kalma on Twitter, and the intention is to educate, teach, and get people to understand the situation. So I'm pretty sure we're going to have another one of these halls pretty quick.
Right on. Thank you, everybody. Great.
Thanks, Mike. And for those of you wanting to know where these events are happening, or you know somebody in another part of Alberta that hasn't been to one of these, if you go to stayfreealberta.com, They're listing all the places where the petitions are. And generally, there are events like this that are put on by Stay Free Alberta. You might see Jeff Rath there, Dennis Modry, Mitch Sylvester, many other people. Tanya Clemens is here tonight. She'll probably be out doing those as well. So go to stayfreealberta.com. Come on up here. What's your name? Where are you from, sir?
Hello, I'm Igor from Calgary. And I actually have a question for you in terms of immigration. So, for example, what happens to your Canadian citizenship status if Alberta separates? And what happens to all the permanent residents, let's say? Or I even have some people in my own community, Ukrainians, who are worried. They're saying, well, we came to Canada fleeing from Ukraine. What happens if Alberta separates, who are living here in Alberta right now?
Okay.
So that's a 3-in-1 question.
Good question.
So I can answer it. So first of all, you got to remember the policies that are written up in the Value of Freedom are not final policies. They're ones that we had to put together to cost the plan, to do the plan. But the policy there is pretty representative of the thinking. So a couple of things would happen in our minds. First of all, if you're a Canadian citizen already, you're still a Canadian citizen the day after. That doesn't change. I know people living in Italy, they're Canadian citizens. They don't have to change citizenship at all. That's one thing. Second of all, we put in the plan that we would reinstitute the old Canadian points system, and we would reevaluate every PR card and every temporary work permit to make sure it fits our criterion so that people who are here as PR holders or work permit holders serve our requirements. And I actually think with the growth I expect from the country of Alberta, we're going to need more people, not less. Now, if you look at that point system, the Value of Freedom, basically, if you speak English, and you clearly do, if you have a skill, if you have an educational background, if you're healthy, stuff like that, you will get enough points to re-qualify. In some special purpose cases, there's one individual who contacted me privately and said, my wife's Japanese, she doesn't want to become Canadian, she has a PR, what's going to happen? If you've been married to a Canadian citizen for more than a couple of years, you're going to keep your PR. The intention is not to throw people out, it's to balance the requirements for workers against the needs of the country. That's what we put in, that's what's likely to happen.
Perfect. Yeah, I just want to make a small comment too, in addition to everything. Guys, we have to find a way to have more publicity on what you're doing, because I just driving by, I saw some post on X, and I was like, okay, there's something going on by 7, so I came here by 5, and then I found out there's something going on by 7, then I had to go back, grab my wife. So it would be great if we have more publicity somehow to know more logistics. I think there will be double the people here if everyone knew what's going on.
I'm sure the media will get rid of that.
Great question. Thank you very much. Yeah, I was just wondering, Dennis, I interviewed you on my channel recently. I think we'd have people beating, trying to come across our border in droves, because I think things will be so nice and good here in Alberta with independence, right?
Well, I think we will be beating people away with a stick,
yeah.
to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Now, hopefully we won't have to use them, but the guts of it is we have to control it and limit it. So there will be quotas, so even though you have your points, you still won't be able to just automatically come in.
Okay, great, thank you. Your name, sir, where are you from?
Dean from Calgary. My question is on the Canada pension. Right now, Carney, the trader, he's given that money investment to Brookfield. What's happening with that?
So the question about what's happened with the investments currently in this CPP, well, this is actually a bit of a challenge. Now, Dr. Modry and I have said we want to be on that negotiating team, because what we need to do is take over the assets. They don't have a big pile of cash sitting somewhere in Ottawa. It's all invested in Brookfield, amongst other things. And we're going to have to either get those shares ourselves or have them sold and returned to us in the form of cash. So it's going to be a lot of work. It's not going to be something that's going to be done easily. But remember, the Canada Pension Plan is a fully funded plan. Those assets exist in stocks and bonds and companies, and we would take ownership of our share.
There's something said about Brookfield can pull this money anytime they want.
It's Canada Pension Plan's money.
Yeah.
And if they run away from it, they're a big corporation. They can be chased, they can be followed, they can be brought to trial.
Right.
Thank you for the question. Nice to meet you as well. What's your name and where are you from?
Sandy from Calgary. I don't have a question. I'd like to talk about something that hasn't been discussed. And I don't know if that's proper tonight or not.
Sure, go ahead.
Do you mind if I hold this?
Go right ahead. Just get to it quickly. A lot of people lined up.
Yeah, I know. This may take a while.
Mic up here, please. Right up here.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I'd like to start to say that I'm a son of a Ukrainian immigrant coal miner. He only lived to the age of 67 because of working in the coal mines. I have friends who lost their fathers working in the coal mines. One of the things he used to complain about was the fact that he couldn't work every day because Eastern Canada wouldn't buy Western coal. Is that any different than our Canadian oil today? Eastern Canada doesn't want to buy our oil. But anyway, the reason I'm here tonight is tax reasons. I don't know if there's another person here tonight that has done any personal income tax returns. If you do, please come up.
No, ask your question, please.
Yeah. So, no, I don't have a question, I said.
So what would you like to ask about?
Well, we talk about a lot about the advantages of being an independent country, and that's very true. I haven't read your publication. I have it because it's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer to be an independent country. However, as an individual, it becomes a taxable disadvantage to leave Canada.
Well, so the question that comes up all the time is, what do you do with your assets? Like I have RSPs and I have pensions and so on and so forth. What happens to that money? Well, a couple of things have to occur. First of all, we will probably switch to U.S. dollars as our currency because the Canadian dollar is going to drop like a stone once we leave. The second thing is we are going to have to, as a country, give people some sort of transitional exchange supports to allow you to convert your Canadian assets, money or otherwise, into U.S. dollars, likely at a fixed exchange rate for a period of time. Because we don't want people to say, well, the Canadian dollar fell by 50%, all my savings are now cut in half. So that's going to be done, and that's where having the kind of surplus we have in our new country gives us the ability to do that and afford that. So that's the kind of thing we would do that would allow you to move your assets gradually into Alberta over a period of time. The last thing I want to say is I've been advising people at meetings like this since I started talking to them, and that is I would be starting to move your assets now into either U.S.-dominated securities or things like Alberta property, or companies that will do business and do well in Alberta, and make sure that they form most of your portfolio to protect their value.
Okay. Thank you, Dennis. Your name, sir? Where are you from?
My name is Nigel McCatherine. I'm a third-generation Albertan. My grandfather came up here in 1918 for a better life, and I was born and raised in Calgary, and I'm very proud of it. I just have one question, and I think it's for Cory. Cory, you talked about Crown land. I've never really heard much. I've followed a lot of this, and I've never really heard much about, let me put it this way. I go to book a campground in Banff, and I talk to somebody in Ottawa that may have never even been here. What happens with our so-called national parks? That's my only question.
Yeah, no, that's a great question because there are some federal assets in Alberta, and that'll be national parks, military bases, and even actually some federal prisons. I had a correctional officer ask me things I never think of. That would have to come with the negotiations when we're talking, I guess, post-vote on what we are going to do. I mean, it's not going to be reasonable to partition it and have these national parks be little parts of Canada within Alberta. They're going to come with us. It will be a matter of debating and discussing with Ottawa how the disposition of that property is going to go, though. So I don't have a clear answer on it, but I mean, yeah, some people line that up as if it'd be a deal breaker as well. Well, you can't do it, there's national parks. Well, no, it's not that simple. But it will be another one of the sticking points to negotiate, without doubt.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Good one. Nice to meet you. Your name? Where are you from?
Michael Harris. I'm here for the University of Calgary. I have just a quick question for everybody up on stage here today. I'm out here at the University of Calgary trying to get more of the youth involved in the independence movement. Besides just, I hear online all the time that it's only people above the age of 40 that are out there wanting independence. And the young people are concerned that if they are wanting to leave this country, that if we leave Canada, will we still have access to programs for students such as the National Student Aid Program, which allows for students to get non-interest student loans to complete their education? Because people are worried that even if there's a slight disruption with their student aid, that they won't be able to complete their programs. And we could see thousands of students lose access to their education. So I just want to just know on behalf of students how that's going to go.
Good question. Dennis?
So one of the key principles that we baked into the plan, and that's why assessing the amount of money that leaves Alberta was so difficult, because it's not just taxation, it's excise taxes and programs like the ones you mentioned. So some of those were included in the calculation. We would have every last intention to make sure you had continuity, that students had continuity, and if anything, better benefits than you have today, because we know how important students and learning are to our future country. So can I guarantee it? Can I say, yeah, it's written down right here? No, I can't. But certainly if you look at the intent of the entire plan, it's to provide those kind of supports starting day one.
Can I just ask you, people are concerned about this. What percentage of students do you think might be voting in favor of the independence movement,
Well, currently right now we run a couple of independence clubs across MRU and the University of Calgary. And right now, currently we have 1,223 members as of today. And currently right now, if I was to guess, out of all those people, I'd say about 100% of them.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have one more comment, or are you done? Good, thank you so much, good question.
So let me add one more thing, sir, and that is that if you want me or anyone to come speak at one of your gatherings, let us know. We'll be there.
Your name, sir, where are you from?
My name is Dean Horning, and I'm from Calgary. My question is, when we speak in terms of the negotiations in good faith, I know nobody has a crystal ball, but how long of a process, has anybody got any comment on how long?
If you ever ask a lawyer how long anything's going to take, they'll never give you an answer. And this is, as I said, it's unprecedented. We can see the hostility already. I don't anticipate it will be a lot more friendly, but there will be the loud majority from Albertans. And so there is that requirement of our elected officials. Of course, the Supreme Court in the decision I referenced also talked about when those kind of negotiations don't look like they're going very well, so there is a contemplation for that. And so I think that's a very good reason for the independence movement advocates talking to other countries and starting those relationships in any event. So as for a timeline, no crystal ball, but there is a very big onus on them to be acting in good faith and doing. Otherwise, what is their role? And that's where they lose all of their power, like all of the structure behind them. So that, it becomes an illusion, and then you point that out.
Okay, and perfect. I got one other quick question. I'm asking this on behalf of my daughter-in-law, who's a scientist. She's an Albertan, and her job is funded through federal government. Where does it leave people like that in this province that depend on federal money for their incomes?
So near as I can tell, and after a ridiculous amount of research, all of the federal monies coming into Alberta for all programs, remember research being on that list, was accounted for as money we would build into the plan. So I'm sure we missed something. I mean, it's not a perfect thing, right. But, and I keep restating this, is that it's in the interest of the country of Alberta to make sure things like that are properly funded, maybe redirected to other research projects, but we need scientists. I'm a physicist myself, and we need to support them. Need research.
Right on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good question. Just of Eva, if we do vote in favor and say yes, is there a specific time period before we have to actually sit down and they have to talk to us about this? Do you know that?
No, it's not in the Constitution, but again, this is the whole, the elected officials are there only based on the will of the people. And when the will of the people speak, if they speak very loudly and clearly, there should be more anticipation to get to those meetings.
Urgency.
Urgency, a lot more, yeah.
Okay,
So
great.
that's a good reason to really get people out there.
Okay. Your name, sir? Where are you from?
Hey, John, my name is Bob Schieser. I'm from Calgary here. Watch your show.
Thank you.
My question, I want to take my hat off to this young gentleman that, from the student that came up a minute ago. I had a graduation party for my daughter last week, and I did. There's about 40 kids there, and I just did a little survey of the kids in the room, basically asking about the independence movement, asking about and what really came out of that is that they're all clueless and really don't follow any of this stuff at all, and it's probably when I was that age, I probably never did either. So it's going to be a bit of work to get the word out to that segment of the age bracket, right? So the other thing that I really wanted to ask was, ever since this fantasy of an MOU came out, and Daniel Smith seems to be very appreciative, and all of a sudden, I sense that she's become very much more Team Canada as opposed to, not just Team Alberta. So I'm just wondering who on this, in the independence movement, is having direct communications, if any, with Daniel Smith, because as much as social media is important and everything like that, and you're trying to get the word out to as many people as you can, Daniel Smith is really the one that gets the national attention. And according to CBC and CTV, we're basically a fanatical right-wing group that nobody's going to pay attention to, and this is all a whole bunch of arm waving that is going to all fizzle out in the next little bit.
Anybody want to take that on, Cory?
Well, I don't have a direct line to Premier Smith, but I have spoken to her on quite a few occasions and members of the party. There's a different game being played in the partisan front. And there's a couple of things to look for. For starters, the UCP was not elected on an independence mandate. They didn't campaign on that. To be honest, it wouldn't be terribly principled for them to make that move. But what they do want is leverage. I think it's, as I said, a political game. When you're talking about the MOU, I got a feeling Premier Smith knows the chances of that going anywhere or is as aware of it as we are. But if there's a referendum looming in fall, she sure has a heck of a lot more arm-twisting leverage with Ottawa to keep pointing at and saying, well, if you don't bloody well start complying, look at this movement that's building here. If she didn't want a referendum, we wouldn't have one. It's fully in her authority just to say no. She could have just said with the last court ruling, oh, sorry, guys, the judge said we can't do it, and we can't do it. But, I mean, I'm trying to get into her head, but I think there's the political aspect there. That's a big, ball to unfold. There are a lot of independent supporters within the caucus. I will say that much. I won't name them. Just quickly on the youth thing, Sheila Gunn-Reid said it great actually at an event I was at, because people point and say there aren't too many young people in the room, and she says, my daughter is a strong independent supporter, but she'd rather have her fingernails ripped out than be in a room full of people like this tonight. It's just not what a lot of young people are into. We do have to reach them, and we have to reach them at their place. And it's hard. It's going to be a challenge, but the most recent polling, one of the things I talked about was showing at 31%. Something that was really interesting when you drilled that was it had stronger youth support than older people. So as long as we're asking the younger people, what's in it for me, there's a lot in it for them. So we just got to get to them in this next 9 months.
Thank you. Yeah, what's in it for me? Well, how about a house? You can't afford one in Canada. Okay, come on up here, please. Your name, please? Where are you from?
Jeannie, and I'm from Calgary. Now, I was raised in Alberta, but I have to fess I was born in Saskatchewan, but Lloydminster, the Meridian Cities, the hospital's on the Saskatchewan side, so they brought me back before I was more than, a week old. So I'm an Albertan through and through. Anyway, my question is that I've talked to a lot of people in my neighborhood, and one of the main questions that was coming up was not only about the pensions, which I kept saying, yeah, well, you're still a Canadian, don't worry, you got 2 passports, but they're asking, what about the national debt? Is Alberta going to get stuck with a portion of national debt?
So there's a couple of ways we've addressed it. First of all, remember I said we're only going to take about half of what the Alberta pension plan would be owed. Part of the thinking with that is that would cover our share of the national debt. That's one option. The second thing is everyone assumes it's per capita, and there's absolutely no reason why the negotiation would go that way. Really, we can say, well, of the money you borrowed, which amount of it was used for Alberta causes?
Well, thank you. That gives me some answers.
Your name? Where are you from?
My name is Teresa, and I'm from Calgary. I have a question from a friend, Dwayne, who's watching LiveStream. He's asked, what will happen in an independent Alberta with regard to Albertans currently who have a registered retirement income fund in Canada? How will the taxation work on that?
So I'm a pensioner too. I have that exact problem. So I'm very sensitive to what happens to my RIF or RSP, whatever. First of all, the currency support would be while it remains in Canada's hands, we'd exchange it at a fixed rate, so you don't lose buying power. Second thing is once it transfers over to the Alberta pension plan, then it's paid in US dollars or Alberta dollars, whichever we move to, and your buying power remains the same. Now, there's no guarantee it's going to be dollar for dollar. This is going to cause some pain, but we think we can largely keep people intact and whole, and as I said, probably improve benefits down the road anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. Hello.
Hi.
Your name, please. Where are you from?
Anita Edwards from Calgary. I'm wondering about, during the talks after the referendum, is there a possibility that we do not have to separate from Canada?
Well, I think it all has to do with a clear question and a clear majority. So that's what the Supreme Court has set so far, and because of that, the Government of Canada enacted the Clarity Act, which Dennis referenced earlier. So the Clarity Act is a federal law that establishes how a province can separate. And what the requirement is that it's a clear question with a clear majority. So if those are the two requirements. As for the inverse of that, it goes to what would we be then? If we're not following the will of the people, then what kind of system are we living in? So that would be my answer. I haven't really thought that one through. That's interesting.
Perhaps some of the interpretation too was, what if the negotiations came along and they met a deal that they felt that we didn't necessarily have to separate?
Yeah.
Because I mean, theoretically, that's what happens is you begin the negotiations. But I would say if 60% of Albertans voted to go, they're going to have to put something really, really nice on the table before we would start looking at things. I mean, hey, if you totally tore down the Constitution and rebuilt it to give proper regional rights and independent rights and all of that, then maybe I would be receptive to that as a negotiator, but we're really getting down the speculative road. So, I mean, I guess theoretically it is possible if there were really good negotiations and some sort of brilliant deal was made, but it would have to be something else after a vote, I would think.
Okay. What about the TFSA? Are they the same as the RSPs?
Yeah, TFSAs are just the same. You can move those assets over. Same structure.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
What's a clear majority? Yeah, because, you
Hasn't
know,
been defined. So it's generally thought of as 50 plus 1.
yeah, I remember the razor edge in 95. It was hundreds of percentage points, and I'm wondering, we'd like to get like 60% or so, make sure it's a clear majority. Come on up here, sir. Your name, where are you from?
Greg Rogers, Calgary. I was just wondering, I know you were saying about how there's been delegations that have gone to the United States and talked to people in the administration there. I was just wondering, has there been, however unofficial, any word from the consular officials in Calgary themselves?
I'm not aware of any. I'm pretty sure they're aware that the folks were down there, but remember, these are private citizens, Dr. Modry, Jeff Rath, speaking on their own personal behalf, so it's not a consular issue yet.
Thank you, sir. Where are you from and your name, please?
My name is Colleen. I'm from Cochrane now again. I am the president of a charitable organization that was registered as a federal non-for-profit. And I was recently having a conversation with a pastor friend of mine here in Alberta, and one of the questions that came up is what happens to our charitable status operating in Alberta when we were nationally registered? And it's okay. It's okay if you don't have the answer. It's just a question that we have.
And there's not quite a clear one. It's similar to any corporation or company that operates outside of the borders as well. And that's the things that's going to, I think, be between both the company on whether they want to break up into regional branches, I guess, or a charity, for that matter, and the kind of structure for transferring that. But I mean, there are mechanisms for countries to have, you know, charities and companies that work on either side of a border, and I'm certain that sort of thing can be arranged. But it's a great question. Again, that's why I love these Q&As. People always hit us with stuff I never even thought of, so thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. We have an official canvasser here. Well done. Your name, sir? Where are you from?
Gary Heenan from Calgary. I know that once the majority is achieved, and we have lots of work to do within the province of Alberta, what do you suppose is going to happen to the rest of Canada and BC, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba in particular? Not that we care too much about Ontario and Quebec.
I mean, I can hit it. I hold no ill will to the rest of Canada. I hold a lot of ill will to the system. So, I mean, hey, you know, when we part ways, I mean, the mature way, I've been through a divorce. There's no sense holding bitterness to the ex. Just, you know, wish them the best and not deal with them. But they're going to have a hard time. I mean, Alberta contributes a heck of a lot more into the Federation than it gets out. We know that. It's going to be a period of disruption. But I would hope that's a time for when we talk about real negotiations, it'll just be nation to nation. But let's talk about how we can trade with each other. Let's talk about how we can have arrangements for crossing the border and have a really friendly relationship of independent states, if you want to call it that, or countries within Canada. But that'll be up to us post-independence. And I think once the hurt goes away after a positive vote and some negotiation, people will get more pragmatic and redevelop a relationship.
I guess I'm particularly concerned about British Columbia, although maybe I shouldn't. But it's going to be separated from the rest of Canada. Would that create a problem?
I think that would be at the point where you really would see the inspiration for an independence movement within BC. Even if it was a more left-leaning one, they'll realize non-contiguous nations don't tend to do well, and it would be in their interest to just start making their own deal. I mean, once one's out of the Federation, I got a feeling the deal's off. We're going to see the dominoes fall, and I suspect Saskatchewan would be not long behind us, and we would just see independence movements throughout, and we'll all be better for it in the long run.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. And there is a growing movement for independence right now in Saskatchewan. they're moving forward, and luckily they've got Alberta leading the way because they're moving forward quickly. Please move up here, sir. Move forward. Your name, where are you from?
My name is Sam. I'm 23 years old from Calgary, Alberta. I have a comment and a question. How many of you in this room agree with Canada being way overpriced and groceries is unaffordable? So my question to all of you is, how much cheaper will an independent Alberta be from living in a costly, liberal Canada?
Well, a couple of solutions to that problem. I think it's going to go down. A couple of things happen. First of all, your tax load's going to be lower, so you have more money in your pocket. That's pretty clear. Second thing is, when we talked about the open border with the Americans, with the free trade zone, I buy stuff in Canada that costs me $50, and my neighbors who have a place down in the United States, they buy exact same product right down to the brand and label for $25. So we're going to see some price benefit from that. Ultimately, it comes down to what are the regulations, what are the overheads, what are the taxes larded on by the government that we will remove, and that's going to take some time, but we can do it.
Awesome, thank you.
I'm just wondering, Dennis, we're talking about a cut in taxes, and I've heard maybe we could do away with income tax within 5 years. Is that a true statement?
Well, in the document, there's actually two sections. There's the very conservative first part, and there's the last section where we said, what happens if we really unleash the Alberta industry, we triple our production, we get the pipelines to support it, and so forth. In that scenario, I call it Dubai with snow. You start ending up with enough cash in the government's hands to pay for the services we need, and you don't need taxes.
Okay.
Why charge them?
Okay, thank you. Your name, sir, where are you from?
My name is Kevin, and I'm from Calgary. And I was just wondering, let's say Alberta does separate, the negotiations are successful. How are the decisions on how Alberta is going to be, I guess, set up, going to be made? Like, what about official languages? Do we need French? Like, we're not Quebec. What about what currency we're going to use? What about how much funding we want to use for federal aid? Like, how are those decisions going to be made? That's a lot to go through, I know, but.
Yeah, and I think that's what's actually incredibly exciting about having that opportunity to have that discussion, because none of us had that opportunity before. And so it's on us to talk to our elected officials and make those demands known, like whether or not you want French or to be included as well as an official language, because they have to communicate that further. So I do know that there's a lot of work being done by the APP and other independence movements to present what they hope to see in an independent Alberta. And I encourage everybody else to make those same ideas known to their friends, their families, their elected officials, so that we start having those conversations about those very things. And it's our opportunity this time to decide what you want to see in an independent Alberta.
Thank you. You have a statement, right?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
My name is Nicole Kimpton, and I am the events organizer for Stay Free Alberta. So, anybody that would like to do an event, please email events, and I'm going to make myself very busy, I know this right now, events@stayfreealberta.com. And all of it, polling stations if you want to have places where people can canvass at your business. It has to be that they are not an employee working at the time. Please email me, let me know. And I just want to give you all a huge round of applause for coming out here tonight. Calgary, you did not disappoint.
Thanks, Nicole. Thank you. Hi there. How are you? And your name? You have a question.
Fantastic. Yes, my name is John as well. I was listening to constitutional lawyer Sean Buckley recently, and he's suggested that Canada's relationship with the United Kingdom is not as symbolic as people make it. So he's highlighted, for example, that in our documents that King Charles is the head of our army. He's highlighted that the Parliament of Westminster can actually dissolve Canada. I'm curious if you guys can comment on that, given that Alberta's flag has the St. George's Cross on top. our politicians still make oaths to the monarch. We had King Charles come last year for a throne speech, and we had Andrew Scheer and Carney sit under him. So it's suggestive that that might be the case. So I'm curious if the Clarity Act specifically talks about seceding from Canada, but also from any obligations with the United Kingdom.
Yeah, the symbolism runs very deep. And I mean, the theoretical power of the monarchy is very strong. But if we wanted to see it end really quickly, let's see the Governor General actually override the Prime Minister even once. So, and let's see King Charles try to overwhelm the Parliament of England. It's not going to happen. I understand technically that it's most certainly written in. I don't believe the Clarity Act touches, though, that aspect of breaking out of the Commonwealth, and it's fair enough because it's a lot that people feel an attachment to, and it's still going to be a part of our history. But as it stands, the biggest service they provide right now is making sure that Pierre Trudeau isn't on our currency and we have King Charles instead. But it is a good question, but and Buckley is a fantastic thinker, and technically we are tied to the crown, but operationally it really is just kind of a piece of history now.
I'd add one more piece, and that is, so how practically would the UK enforce such a claim?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's silly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. If you have a question, feel free to come up here. Your name, please. Where are you from?
Hi, I'm Mitchell from Calgary. So my main question is, you hear things like we're going to triple production, GDP is going to rise. But from what I know about production is that it's financed primarily by private companies, right? And seeing as we're already at all-time high record production in Alberta, and given that investment is driven by things like the risk-return relationship, supply and demand. My question is, in a free Alberta, how can we be sure that we will reach these GDP projections, especially given what some companies might see as a rise in political instability or political risk? And how can we trust these figures, and how do we know that it's going to be 3 times production, even though we're already at a record high, and that these companies are the ones that are, paying for the production?
So you've got to remember that the last section was speculative. This was us sort of saying, what if? But remember, there's been a number of oil sands plants that have been shut down courtesy of Justin Trudeau. Restart those, that's more production. Second thing, in terms of investment, there will be some bobbles because the political uncertainty is a challenge. But if the United States recognizes us, we show ourselves to be governed well, and we have a low tax regime, what company wouldn't want to invest?
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you. Good question.
So
Your name, please?
I'm Michelle from Calgary, and I'm asking this on behalf of my niece Amanda. So she's 30-ish, and she's wanting to get involved. And she asks on behalf, well, this is her own question, what would happen if a separate Alberta, so we're separated, what would happen if the NDP came into power because of Calgary and Edmonton?
That's yours, Cory.
Oh, thanks. I know, and it's a good fear. Look, we can't guarantee that we're going to pick a better government than the one we got rid of. That's on us. And that's something we've got to be thinking of as we campaign today, as we try to bring about the independence vote. Maybe we've convinced enough Albertans to realize that the Federation isn't serving them, but we better make sure enough Albertans realize that socialism will never serve them either. And But it's up to us to remain politically active and keep educating. It does go beyond the independence movement. I won't go into which parties or whatnot, but we have to stay politically active because, well, we went through 4 years of it. We know we're capable of making stupid choices when given the chance sometimes.
Your name, please. Where are you from?
Constance from Calgary. And my question is actually very similar. How will leadership be decided if Alberta separates? So it's quite similar to what you guys were talking about just now. Like, how are we going to make sure that we actually pick the right people to lead this country?
Get involved.
Well, so no, you go. Okay, sorry. There's a couple of things. I mean, Ev and I are working on the Constitution. We think we can build a strong one with all the input. But practically speaking, on day one, as Eva said, nothing changes. You know, the things continue to operate until we set up the Constitution we want, which has in there the structures we need and the methods by which we elect our leaders. And it's those leaders that are actually the ones that are going to really lead us out of where we are. It's not just people picked out of a hat.
And okay, so it's not going to be the same political parties. Like, is it going to be?
Well, it could be. And what I was going to add, it could be anybody here that wants to then run and be part of that independent Alberta and those elected officials. So I encourage you not only to think about the structure that you want, but think about running in this new independent Alberta.
Thank you. Could I just ask something? I know this is a challenge right now. I've talked to Dennis about this. Somebody asked a question, wrote this down. What kind of government will Alberta have, prime minister or president? Now, I'm going to throw this at Constitution. We have a Constitution in Canada. I know this is a challenging one. Dennis, I'll ask you, and maybe Eva, maybe if all three of you want to weigh in on this one. It's a tough one.
So we're drafting this, and there's been a number of drafts, and it's gone back and forth. But I would say the common characteristics we're seeking, that are common throughout, is strong rights, including things like property, more of a Republican structure, so a legislature with an elected Senate, an elected House of some sort, and an executive, something like a president. Those are the structures we're seeing. Now, ultimately needs the Constitutional Conference to really ratify, but that's the direction the thinking is now.
Eva?
And I always put it back to the crowd. So let me just ask you, would you rather have a prime minister in a new Alberta? A president in a new Alberta? Does the name matter? Okay, interesting. Thank you. This is the opportunity for you to make your voices heard and let people know.
Check, there we go. And we'll point out that president doesn't mean we're 51st state, okay? We'll just make that quite clear here tonight. That's not what we're doing here. Your name, sir? Where are you from?
Donald from Calgary. I think I know the answer, but just thinking about defense and veterans. There's a lot of veterans. There's some of your staunchest supporters here. I've seen a bunch in the crowd as well. Have you given thought to that for the VA benefits, RCMP benefits, everything coming over? I think I know the answer, but it led me to a bigger question, defense spending. Are we going to be joining NATO? Are we going to have the 2% budget for defense on that?
So I can address that. The question's actually come up a number of times. And the way we've been answering it is that it was an oversight not to include veterans benefits and pensions and police benefits and so forth. So the intent that we drafted would be that we would try and get as much money out of Canada as we could to support those. But ultimately, if you were in Alberta, we would replace those benefits and pay for them from there.
Are you a former service?
Yeah, just reserves. But my father was an RCMP. I've got a great friend group, served in Afghanistan, and I'm going to be talking about this event. And thank you very much for answering that question. So
thank you for your service. Thanks to everybody who are in the services who are here tonight. Your name, sir, where are you from?
Jim from Calgary. I think this has already been touched upon. Currently, the Westminster model that we have running the political system in Canada is partly the reason why we're here. We do not have representation. We are basically underrepresented, if represented at all. My question is, what exactly do you envision as a political structure? Dennis, you touched on it, elected Senate, elected legislature, that type of thing. One of my concerns is if, say, Saskatchewan joins us, their population is much less. We don't want to create a situation where we have one population lords over the other, because that's just going to create problems. Oh, one final note. We talk about the majority of vast majority. We have a member of Parliament sitting in the House of Commons that one is riding in Quebec by one vote. Let's bear it in mind.
Thank you.
Well, you want to cover it?
I'll hit it quickly. I mean, well, as quickly as I can. I mean, one of the things we most definitely don't want to do is replicate the system we just left. Then we'll just have a smaller version of the toilet bowl we just jumped out of, which would really be a poor mistake to make. But the point about regional representation and centralized control, that's a big part of the problem. That's part of why the Federation is failing, because Ottawa is trying to control a nation that's diverse and huge, and it's not going to work. So we have to, and I'm looking forward to debating and going on with Dennis and others as we try to talk about the model we'd want post-independence, and there's going to have to be a lot of talk about it. But the regional autonomy and representation is going to be very important, because the people of Edmonton, as we know, think differently than the people of Lethbridge, think differently than the people of Grande Prairie, than the people of Calgary. And we don't want a centralized government system here that would leave them hanging. And that's where you talk about bicameral systems that are proper. I mean, a proper Senate is going to balance things by region and then by population with a Congress or other methods. So
that's exactly the intent, would be one's population-based and one's geography-based.
Well, we got to have these discussions and maintain that. The main thing is knowing what we don't want, and then we can all start fighting about what we do want. But it is important to have those discussions.
Your name, sir? Where are you from?
My name is Greg Hartzer, and I'm from Calgary, Alberta. I'm going to ask the panel. No, I'm not going to ask the panel because they all know me. I'm going to turn my back just because the camera's on. So no offense to the camera. I'm the chief financial officer on the campaign, and I'm going to do a shameless plug at this point in time. We need to raise about $560,000 to make this campaign go. The best thing that you can do for us is go to stayfreealberta.com and give online. If you would like to give cash tonight, there's very strict rules around cash. We will have a cash collection box a couple places. You cannot give us any more than $50, okay? If you want to give less in cash tonight, less than $50, the folks will take it, but they will be monitoring what you actually put in the basket. If you wish to give more cash, please take the time to fill out a proper receipt. But I want to thank you all for being here tonight. Just so you know, while you were all sitting in here, there's about 1,200 people lined out on the street to get in and do signature.
Wow. Thank you. Thanks for doing that. Thank you.
Actually, it's even better. We have right now 3,100 people watching online.
Wow. Wow.
Incredible.
Are you excited?
A little bit.
Your name, please. Where are you from?
Vicky, Calgary. I just want to say I have been to, this is my third event this week.
Wow.
So Didsbury was a massively wicked turnout. They expected maybe 200. We had well over 6. Bicycle, same thing, 752 for a turnout. And I've been at this table selling some flags tonight. So I haven't been able to see that crowd, and I made my husband go and sit at the table just so I could peek. I can't even see the end of the line. I almost cried. It's so beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. I'd like to introduce this man, a friend of mine, Jeevan Mangat, who is one of the organizers tonight. So maybe we can give him a round of applause. Do you have a question of our panelists, Jeevan?
I don't have a question, but what I want to tell everybody that actually the main organizer is Heather, and she's back there signing people up for petition. And Heather's done a lot of work organizing the canvassers, getting the information out, and I'm just following her lead. But I want to tell everybody the lineup for people to sign the petition for Alberta independence. It's going out the door, along the sidewalk, into the second parking lot, looping around. And I've talked to a few people in the lineup, and I said, did you bring supper? Did you bring a TV? Did you bring an iPad? And they said, how long have you been waiting? This an hour. I go down the line. Furthermore, they've been waiting an hour. And I said, tomorrow you can sign too. Nobody said we're going home. They want to sign the petition. That's how committed true Albertans are. And I'm so glad we're going to scare the federal government of how strong we are. Anyway, I want to thank John and the speakers. Thank you very much for giving up your time.
Thanks, Jeevan. Your name, please, and where you're from.
My name's Tara Huber, born and raised in Calgary, Alberta. This is more of a suggestion because I follow all of you. I'm on the boards frequently, and I was wondering, as a canvasser myself waiting for my credentials to come in, I was wondering if we could consider maybe having a counter on the site, one of the sites, so we can see where we are and how close we are to our goals. Because I know I personally want to see bigger rather than less. I want to trounce Luciak. I think he's awful, and what he did is awful, and what he's doing to us or suggesting what he wants to do to us is horrid. He doesn't want anyone to have a voice. He wants to have the voice. So I thought a counter could help everybody keep motivated. Just a suggestion.
Real good idea, I think.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions that were filled out on the same vein here. I have a friend with a global company registered with Health Canada that is headquartered in Calgary, ramifications, and another one, I work for a Canadian company registered in Ontario. What could happen to my employment?
We sort of answered this.
Employment, I think, what would happen?
Yeah, companies registered elsewhere, how do you handle it?
Oh, so that is similar to the charity question almost. I mean, there's going to be...
Sort of, yes.
So, to be honest, his question might be better placed to his employer. I hate to put it that way, but I mean, whether they would want to be a multinational company with branches or whether they wouldn't want to be in an independent Alberta. I hate to say it, but we got to be honest with people. Sometimes there's going to be some things that won't work on both sides. But for the most part, I think we're going to want transition, continuity. We're looking at time. Companies and people all together will want to maintain that relationship. So there's too many variables to kind of hit directly with every individual, but for the most part, I think they can maintain it.
Thank you. And one for Eva. I know that Cory touched on this as well, but it was something I was thinking about. You were sitting in the courtroom with Jeff Rath just before Christmas. Justice Phoebe ruled against Mitch Sylvester. And then Bill 14 came along, which gave us, what we're doing right now. We do have those challenges right now by Aboriginal groups. Are there any chances that they could be successful? I mean, I hate to say this, but the law is an ass. So what do you think?
Yeah, really hard to say. I think we all can acknowledge everything is upside down. What I think would happen in court doesn't seem to happen. We see peaceful protesters being arrested and jailed. That's not normal. Same with some of the court cases we're seeing, but I think we have to continue responding and being part of the court cases, showing legitimacy to the cause. But also, like I said, and we've heard here, this is about the democratic will of the people. And one thing that is very clear is that Aboriginal and First Nations groups don't have a veto on a referendum. And that was very clear in Feasby's decision. He said a referendum is possible. It's unfortunate that they're taking this kind of step to try to prevent citizens from engaging in their democratic rights.
Okay, anybody else with a question? No? Wow, there were some great questions here tonight. Is there anything you'd like to add? Is there anything that you've thought of while you were up there this evening that we should pass along to these people?
Well, I'm just going to say once again that the power is with you. And every time I speak in front of a crowd, people always come to me and ask me as the lawyer to fix this or answer that. But I really want to remind you all that this is an opportunity for you to take the mic, for you to make some decisions on what you would like to see an independent Alberta look like, an opportunity to run if that's what you're feeling. But this is a once in a lifetime maybe opportunity that we were talking about, and it's important that everyone's voices are heard. And Get yourself educated and more involved. I think the more you come to these kind of events, you learn more, and then you could start engaging more with others outside of this room.
If I might ask, Cory.
I'll just be brief. I mean, I'm just thrilled. I kind of expected this coming out, but I've, for some who know me, I've been stubbornly at this over 20 years, and it's never been like this. Never been anywhere close to this.
Yeah.
We are at a turning point in history, and it's up to us. Maintain this energy. It's going to be a long grind, though, and we got to keep the energy up, keep these meetings up, keep talking to your friends, keep talking to your neighbors, and we're going to be a part of something just brilliant. So thank you all very much.
And if I might, just before we, I think, wrap things up, Cory, I follow you on your YouTube channel, and Cory's got a lot of answers on his YouTube channel. He wrote the book, The Sovereigntist Handbook, and I heard you maybe a week or so ago talking about people going out door to door to talk to people. Do you have any advice for those people who might be volunteering their time so that we can be as, I guess, efficient as possible when we're talking to people about independence?
Absolutely. Know where your battles can be won and where they can't. Some people who are hesitant might take multiple touches and talking to, but when they dig their heels right in and it's clear they're never going to support this, disengage and move on. Our stubborn nature makes us want to debate them and stand there and let the veins pulse in our head. Save that for Twitter. When you're campaigning, we want to find the yes votes and bring them out. So that's just the advice I'd give, because it's a lot of work, and we can sometimes think that we want to try and convert everybody, and that's impossible. So when you found the ones who really, you just know it, and you'll know it, just politely move on and find the next person. That's the tip I would give. There's a million tips on campaigning, but that's a big one.
Thanks, Cory. Thank you very much. Again, we'd like to thank Max for being here tonight. How many people did we have online, Max, at one time?
Online. We have 3,400 people watching online.
Good stuff. Thank you, Max. Thanks for being here. Freedom Calendar, freedomcalendar.net.
Yeah. So if you can see some signs on the side, there's a QR code in there. You can scan it. That will give you the links for Twitter, Rumble, Facebook Live, as well as YouTube. So essentially, the 3,500 people is just a cumulative on all the platforms.
Okay, just a reminder, stayfreealberta.com. They do need donations, and we heard about $500,000 is going to be needed. So if you can do that, that would be terrific. They're still looking for volunteers. Volunteer just a few minutes, a few hours of your time. If we all did that, imagine how many people we could touch and reach with the independence message. And also, you go out and be a canvasser if you can. I'm waiting for my credentials. I'm hoping to set up in my neighborhood here in Southeast Calgary and can have people drop by, and I can sign people up as well. You can do that. I appreciate you coming out tonight. This has been overwhelming. I'd like to thank Dennis for being here. Eva, Cory, Morgan, we appreciate you being here. If you would like to have your location of a business, maybe have canvassers there, please let us know about it. Again, go to stayfreealberta.com and you can do that. Yes?
I'm just saying, be careful as you leave. We have the line still coming in the door. We have a table at the door, so it's very narrow. If you can and want to move out other doors, that would be helpful.
Thank you very much, and thanks again to everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight. Thanks to Jeevan Mangat, Heather Field for putting this together tonight. Vote yes for independence, everybody. Thank you.
So thank you very much for tuning in. We have 32 people, 3,200 people watching online in the live stream. So it's been amazing, and thanks for tuning in. And hope to see you there on the next live streaming that will happen probably next week or so. So thanks for coming.